Once inside the savannah's center, a kind girl saved a doomed tiger who had lost hope. Their bond would ignite a tale of loyalty, greed, and redemption. But will nature's equilibrium triumph over human greed? Listen to hear a tale that will touch your heart and inspire your soul. If you're new, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and don't forget to share it with your family and friends. Also, let us know where you're watching from. The sun beat fiercely above in the savannah, casting shimmering waves of heat glinting down the parched paths of Mbala village. Zara, a bright and soft-spoken 12-year-old girl, walked along the edge of the forest, her small hands grasping a wicker basket. She was out gathering wild fruits to return to her mother, who had been ill because of the long drought. Her ears pricked up at the low growl that came from the dense bush in front of her. Zara halted abruptly and listened intently. It was low and raspy, a noise she had never heard. She could not help her interest and moved closer, pushing through thorny bushes and tall grasses. There, in a clearing, she came upon a tiger pinned by a vicious iron trap laid by a hunter. The beautiful beast's striped fur shone in the sun, but its body writhed in agony. Its amber eyes met Zara, a pleading and desperate look in its eyes. Zara gasped, her body urging her to run. Tigers were ruthless killers, big and swift, but something in the eyes of the animal kept her frozen in place. "Help me," the tiger growled, its voice surprisingly soft. Zara's heart was stuck in her throat. A talking tiger. She must be dreaming. You can talk." She had whispered, trembling. "Yes," replied the tiger, "I am no ordinary beast. I am held in this form by a curse. Free me, and I will owe you a debt." Zara hesitated, thinking. Letting the tiger go was crazy, suicidal, actually, but allowing it to die was no answer. She scouted their surroundings to make sure that there were no hunters around. She gritted her teeth and then used a thick branch to wrench open the iron trap. Winching at the tiger's pain growl, she labored conscientiously. At last, with a deafening creak, the trap opened. The tiger hobbled out, shaking its paw and extending its muscular body. It lowered its great head in a gesture of respect before Zara. "Thank you, child. My name is Cavi. I vow you endless loyalty from this day on." Zara stared in shock, her fear overcome by wonder. Before she could say a word, Cavi vanished into the woods, his striped tail disappearing into the darkness. Zara remained there for a short while, gripping her basket, wondering if she had imagined the whole incident. She was unaware that this moment of courage would alter her life beyond her wildest dreams. Weeks passed by, and all settled back to normal for Zara. She went with her mother daily to fetch water from the well as worked in their small garden. Yet the vision of the talking tiger still echoed in her mind. She continued to glance around the periphery of the woods, hoping to see another glimpse of the elusive creature. One evening, when the sun dipped below the horizon in a fiery blaze of gold, Zara returned home from the village well. The clay jug in her arms was brimming, but her mind was not. It was full of plots to surprise her mother with a freshly caught fish for supper. As she walked towards their tiny hut, a figure loomed in front of her. She stood still, her heart pounding. "Do not fear," a familiar voice rumbled. Zara looked to find Cavi, his amber eyes shining in the dying light. "Cavi!" Zara exclaimed, a mix of wonder and excitement rushing over her. "What are you doing here?" The tiger moved, sliding silently for his size. "I pledged my allegiance, and I have come back to fulfill it. But first, you must hear the truth of my curse." Zara nodded, her interest piqued. Cavi sat back on his haunches, his tail curled over his paws. I was once a great king, king of a fertile and wealthy kingdom. My greed was limitless. I took more from the earth, thanking no one. The forest spirits were offended and cursed me, keeping me in this form until I do something very kind. Zara's eyes widened. Freeing you was that act, perhaps. Kavi spoke, his words weighed down by uncertainty. But the spirits are capricious. Only time will reveal whether my obligation has been fulfilled. Until then, I am indebted to you. Zara's heart was heavy with a combination of pride and sympathy. She stroked Kavi with her hand, amazed at how warm it felt. Then I will help you break your curse. You don't have to suffer through this by yourself. Kavi's expression softened. Thank you, little one, but keep in mind, gifts of the forest need to be respected. Take what you need, but never let greed consume you. As they talked, dark clouds gathered on the horizon, a harbinger of the impending drought. Zara didn't have a clue the ways in which the bond she had established with Kavi would be pushed to its limits beyond anything she could have possibly imagined. The drought came quickly and ruthlessly, turning the once thriving village into a desolate stretch of parched earth and withered crops. The village well, Mbala's mainstay, dwindled to a pitiful trickle. Water was hoarded grudgingly by families, but even the limited supply was dwindling. Desperation clung heavy in the air. One afternoon, upon Zara's return from the dry fields, she discovered her mother weakly lying on their straw mat, her lips parched and pale. The sight hit Zara like a bolt of lightning. "Mama," she struggled, kneeling down beside her. Her mother's eyes flew open, and she could muster no more than a weak smile. "I'm fine, child," her mother breathed, but her voice was barely audible. That evening, a crescent moon casting its light, Zara waited outside their hut, her heart full of concern. She spoke softly into the night. "Kavi, if you can hear me, have mercy on us." A few moments after, a familiar snarl resounded from the shadows. Zara turned to see Kavi emerge, his amber eyes glowing. "I hear your call, little one," replied the tiger. Zara poured out her fears, her voice trembling. Kavi listened carefully, his expression stern. He nodded when she finished. "Come on," he said. Zara lingered briefly and then rose to her feet. Kavi took her deep into the woods, past the path she recognized. The air became cooler, and the giant trees murmured among themselves. Finally, they reached a secret spring, its water sparkling under the light of the moon. Zara caught her breath at its beauty. "This spring," Kavi said, "is a gift from the forest spirits. Its water is pure and limitless, but it should be shared wisely. Take only what you need and caution your people to do the same. Greed will be their downfall." Zara filled her gourd, her hands trembling with gratitude. She looked at Kavi. "Thank you. I will never forget what you have said." She returned to the village, the precious water bringing her mother back to life within minutes. Villagers learned about the spring and soon started waiting in line to have Zara bring them to it. She did so grudgingly, but the wariness of Kavi stayed with her. The villagers went to the spring at first in respect and gratitude, taking only what they required. Zara stood guard, ensuring Kavi's orders were followed. But days turned into weeks, and rumors of the spring's enchanting bounty started to circulate. Greed began to seep into villagers' hearts. "Why must we restrict ourselves?" One man insisted. "The spring will always flow." Another woman concurred. "If we save now, we can save it for later." In spite of Zara's protests, the villagers began taking enormous pots to the spring and filling them to the brim. The once sparkling waters began losing their sparkle, and a dim cloudiness dominated. The forest's rich aroma was dulled, and the animals that previously visited the area were now scarce. Kavi, lurking in the background, growled quietly. He approached Zara one night as she sat beside the spring, her brow furrowed with worry. They are ignoring my warning. Said Kavi, the spirits will not be silenced. Zara's eyes brimmed with tears. I tried to stop them, but they won't listen. Then they will have to pay the price. Kavi replied, his voice filled with regret. The natural balance cannot be disrupted without a price. That night, a fierce wind swept through the village. Trees groaned and rocked, their leaves whispering ominous secrets. At dawn, the spring's flow was reduced to a trickle, and its water a murky brown. There was panic in the village when the villagers' stored water pots cracked and spilled mysteriously. What have we done? A white-haired old man breathed, his voice shaking with remorse. Zara stood before the villagers, her small frame steadfast. Kavi warned us. She said, the spring was a blessing, not a resource to be mined. We have to find a way to put things right. The villagers' heads were hung in shame, and shame washed over them. Together, they decided to repair the spring and the forest that surrounded it. They were guided by Zara and Kavi and began replanting trees, cleansing the spring, and expressing thanks to the spirits. The job of reclaiming the forest was an enormous task, but the villagers were resolute. Each day they replanted trees, carried boulders to reinforce the banks of the spring, and gathered offerings for the forest spirits. The forest, which had once been so green and so full of life, now desolate and broken, slowly began to revive. Zara toiled hard, calloused fingers, but an unwavering heart. Kavi, even though never much of a talker, stood beside her, providing encouragement and advice whenever she needed it. One evening, while the villagers slept near a tiny fire, Kavi spoke. The spirits are observing, he told her. They note your work and your remorse. Stay on this path, and the balance will be regained. The villagers all nodded seriously, their conscience now full of hope. Weeks passed, and the forest started to recover. The waters of the spring, which had been turbid, clarified very slowly. The animals returned stealthily, their slow pace an indication of trust regained. Having gained experience, the people began to see the forest not as something to be exploited, but as a friend in their struggle to survive. Early one morning, when the first sunlight filtered through the forest trees, villagers stopped by the spring. Zara knelt at its edge, fingers crossed over a small gift of fruit and flowers. She muttered a prayer of thanks, her words lost in the soft wind. Abruptly, the spring was bathed in a soft light. The villagers gasped as the water started to emanate an otherworldly light. Kavi stepped ahead, the amber of his eyes reflecting the glow. The spirits have spoken, he announced. They have accepted your repentance and restored the spring to its former beauty. But remember, this balance is fragile. Treat it with reverence always. The villagers clapped, their hearts filled with thankfulness and relief. They vowed to take good care of the spring and the forest, and they imparted the lesson they had learned to the children. As the party progressed, Kavi went up to Zara. Little one, he said to her, his voice brimming with pride, your wisdom and your goodness have guided your people. My obligation to you is paid, and my curse lifted. Zara's eyes welled up with tears. You're leaving. Kavi nodded. My stay here is at an end, but I will always guard you. You have the heart of a leader. Trust it, and with that, Kavi vanished into the woods, his body melting away like a dream. Zara was motionless, her heart weighed down and full of determination. She knew the connection they had shared would be hers for a lifetime. Life in Mbala village began to prosper once again. The forest, which was once full of life and color, produced an abundance of fruit, game, and water. Individuals, having learned their lesson, stayed with the possessions that they had gathered. Zara was a role model and source of insight, her name spoken with respect to the young and old. One evening, as the village gathered around a common fire, an old man rose to speak to them. We owe a lot. Our forest, our spring, and our little Zara's wisdom. Let us not forget also the tiger Kavi. whose sacrifice and guidance rescued us. The villagers all nodded in agreement, their gratitude hanging in the air like the glow of the fire. As the stars shone brightly above, Zara rested quietly, her mind thinking about her journey. She thought of Kavi, the tiger who had been guardian and friend. Though gone, his lessons were still with her. She rose and walked to the edge of the woods, where the leaves softly whispered in the breeze. Gracias, Kavi. She breathed for everything. Abruptly, a gust of wind swept over her with the fragrance of wildflowers and the distant rumble that was almost a goodbye. Zara smiled, her heart content. The villagers thrived on, passing on the tale of Zara and the tiger from one generation to another. It became a legacy, a remembrance of the virtue of gratitude, a respect for nature, and the power of resisting greed. Moral lesson: true prosperity lies in the equilibrium of giving and taking. Gratitude and appreciation of nature are the secrets of equilibrium, while greed destabilizes the balance and calls for destruction. Let us enjoy the blessings of the earth and bequeath them to future generations.